This morning on the Ag Issues program, the Washburn University School of Law hosted a special forum this past Friday looking at the rural attorney, rural tax professional shortage across the nation. We had the opportunity to speak with the organizer of the event, Roger McEowen, professor of agricultural law and taxation at the Washburn University School of Law. And we also had the chance to talk with Roger on a couple of major developments on concerning the Corporate Transparency Act and the Horse Protection Act as well. The first thing we asked Roger about on Friday was on how Friday's forum went.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being here, Greg. And it was a great day. And we had put together a panel of practitioners really across the country, from Idaho-Oregon border to Kansas to North Dakota to Iowa, each telling of their unique experiences and their unique needs. But there's some commonalities amongst all of them, and that is they all are looking for new talent. There's just such a shortage, no matter where you're at in the rural areas all across the country.
One of the panelists in the afternoon session, she termed it as it's dire to be able to do. Is that accurate?
Oh, I think it is. In many areas, it is dire. We see that in Kansas. There are areas in western Kansas, a couple of our counties don't have any practicing licensed attorneys in the county. And then you get into some issues as to, if you need a public defender, there is no public defender. Somebody has to be imported from outside of that area to do that work. And that's not necessarily an agricultural issue, although it could be, but in other practice areas, farmers and ranchers have to go a long ways to find competent legal counsel, whether it's tax, whether it's an ag contract, whether it's farm program payment issues. Those are all unique areas of the law, and we just don't have the level of talent out there in terms of the numbers that we need to keep it sustainable.
There's a couple other things I want to talk about, and unfortunately one that's slowly becoming more of a headache, and that, of course, is the decision by the Supreme Court Thursday to lift the stay, the injunction that was prohibiting the incorporation of the Corporate Transparency Act. Roger, here we go again. We're back at square one.
That's right, and this is unfortunate. The timing is terrible because tax season's about ready to start in just a couple of days, and now we've got this uncertainty, and we've got a lot of tax practice people that don't want to touch this for fear of malpractice liability. Is this the unauthorized practice of law? And that issue has been determined differently from state to state. But and we still don't know, as you and I are visiting right now, we still don't know what the position of the FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Network, will be, and that's where you have to file your BOI reports. They haven't said anything yet. Again, as we're talking, they may by the time this airs. But the Supreme Court needed to do one of two things, and they didn't either. They either needed to say, no, the stay stays in place so that we don't have to worry about this while the courts sort this out, or they grab the issue and decide the merits of the case. And they did neither of those, and it creates more confusion. And I wrote on my Substack that I didn't think I'd see the day that I agreed with Justice Jackson, but Justice Jackson was correct when she dissented and said, no, there's no problem here in terms of greater peril to the government's interests or national security. It's already been delayed 4 years. What's a little bit more time to keep the stay in place while the courts sort it out? So we don't know exactly when deadlines are right now, and the issue's not over. It could end up still, again, back in the Supreme Court's lap, or Congress could deal with it, or the President could issue an executive order and say, keep that stay in place while the courts decide it. So there's a lot up in the air right now.
I believe it's the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. March 25th, I think, was the date they're going to have arguments about that as well. That could make difference. That may not make a difference. It's in the category of who knows right now.
Well, that's a couple of months out. We have to wait a couple of months to get oral arguments on this case that the Supreme Court kicked back to the Fifth Circuit. And that keeps things up in the air. And do we have to file reports in that interim time? That's what we don't know yet. And that's what everybody needs to know is, well, when's the deadline? Because if I miss a deadline, then there are criminal penalties and fines that can apply in those situations. So we really need some guidance. Actually, it would be nice if Congress would just kind of put the deadline off for a year or so. Just put it out for a year. Let the courts sort this out, which is what they tried to do in the CR in the lame duck session. But in the pared down version that actually passed, that extension got pulled.
How much of this is going to fall into the new Treasury Secretary's lap whenever he is officially confirmed?
Well, FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Network, is a branch of the Treasury Department. So you're right, the Treasury Secretary is going to be the one that determines what the policy is going forward on this. Do we enforce this reg, or what do we do? And we don't have an IRS commissioner either, so that's an open position. And the Treasury Secretary is not in there yet. So the administrative agencies responsible for this don't have guidance right now. I will remind people that when this law initially passed in December of 2020 and it got to President Trump, he vetoed it the first time, or we wouldn't, if that veto hadn't been overridden, we wouldn't have to deal with these reporting rules in this issue. It's possible that when this is drawn to his attention, he'll recall that I did veto this the last time and perhaps do something, like I said earlier, maybe an executive order. There's just so many things that are up in the air right now with respect to this. I hope we get some guidance soon as to when and if we have to file.
Roger, another thing that just came down Friday afternoon, and I got this from the Texas Department of Agriculture, is USDA postponing the new Horse Protection Act final rule 60 days, so from February 1st to April 2nd. A reprieve, yes, but still in effect come April 2nd, yes, as well.
Well, let's hope by then that we have a new ag secretary that is seated, and maybe the policy will change, and this 60-day window gives the agency enough time to determine what the policy is going to be going forward. And I think a pullback on those regs, as you and I talked about them recently on the Morning Ag Issue Show, I think a pullback is necessary. They're very broad. It applies to all breeds and types of horses, horse shows, perhaps all the way down to the 4-H level. That was not the intent of the Congress when they enacted the Horse Protection Act back in the early 1970s. And so it's really kind of grown a regulatory state of its own. And I like this reprieve for a while, and perhaps we'll have maybe some additional regs to deal with the Tennessee walking horse problem, or they just won't finalize the regs at all and not implement them. So we'll see.
Well, those will definitely be two topics that we'll have on future Ag Issues programs. So, Roger, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, that was Roger McEowen, Professor of Agricultural Law and Taxation at the Washburn University School of Law, talking not only about the forum, but a couple of the major developments concerning the Corporate Transparency Act and the Horse Protection Act as well. I'm going to guess more than likely we will have updates on that coming up next Monday on the Ag Issues program when Roger will make his regular appearance. We're looking to Friday's open forum on the rural attorney, rural tax professional shortage that was hosted by the Washburn University School of Law. You heard from Roger McEowen earlier in the program. Now let's hear from one of the panelists for Friday's forum. Joe Peiffer was one of the panelists as he represents Ag and Business Legal Services and also the Ag and Business Legal Strategies, that is based in Hiawatha, Iowa. Joe, as we have this type of forum today, really addressing the shortages for rural attorneys and rural tax professionals, how serious is this problem, not only for you in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but really across the nation?
I can speak to Iowa in particular because it's very difficult for people in the rural part of the state to get attorneys. And I'm in a niche practice. I deal with a lot of the financial distress and farm bankruptcy. I'm the only one in the state that has a farm background that's doing that type of work. So I understand the business of agriculture, and I've worked with many farmers, which gives me a leg up on many others. But there aren't many even in the state that do what I do. So that's why I'm able to have clients from throughout the state. I've got clients in Illinois. I've had clients in Missouri. They all need the same assistance, but there aren't many of us doing what I do, so I have to do a long outreach.
And you'd mentioned, too, because you've seen this with doctors, visiting doctors, or in this case, over Zoom, visiting with doctors as well. How effective has that been for your practice to do similar things like that?
I've worked with some clients that the only thing I ever did was met over Zoom, and we could share screens and they could send documents to me and we could review the documents. It's very effective if you have somebody that's got a good solid connection so that you can see each other. I like looking them in the eye. I like being able to share the video and the documents we're looking at. One of the problems we have is that if we don't have fast broadband, then the problem you have is that they can't see the documents we're looking at, and we're trying to share and discuss what's going on. So that is a problem there. I know it's being addressed that they're trying to get the rural broadband going. We've got to get that going so that we can effectively provide legal services to our clients all over the state and all over the country.
How, and you had mentioned this as well, mentioning your senator from Iowa, Chuck Grassley, the lack of knowledge that is in Congress, specifically on these topics. And obviously you guys are very lucky having the senator there. But the first thought that came into my head is, by the way, he's 90 years old, so he's not long as far as his time being up in Congress, too.
Right. Senator Grassley was just reelected 2 years ago, so he's got 4 more years left on this term. And when he leaves us, whoever we're going to get is going to be a freshman senator. Freshman senators have to learn the ropes, and they have very little power. And it's beneficial for me to be able to have an oversized voice by getting my ideas put in front of Congress through Senator Grassley. So I'm in contact with his staffers generally once a week, or at least a couple times a month, talking about farm bankruptcy and other farm issues that are very important to my clients. And when we have people that don't understand it, and I've dealt with a number of legislators when I've gone to legislative days in D.C., and the staffers are the people that they deal with most. But if you have a staffer that doesn't have an idea what a heifer is or a gilt is, it's kind of tough to explain production agriculture in dealing with hogs or cattle. Same thing, they don't understand how the crops work, why we have a crop rotation, why it's important that we have herbicides and pesticides. They're not thinking about it in the fashion of everything, every bit of legislation they write impacts many times people in an outsized fashion, far more than you would expect it to, simply because they didn't know what the heck they were doing, which is what I pointed out in dealing with a farm bankruptcy issue back in 1999. I knew what I wanted in it and why I wanted it. I told them it won't work. When that case came up to the Supreme Court, when they said, you get that language or no language, you can litigate it. I litigated it. It went to the Supreme Court. And on the issue, I told them it wouldn't work. Supreme Court agreed 5-4. They didn't listen. Then it took us another 5 years to clean up the mess Congress had created.
For what this forum has done today and the work Roger has done really trying to promote this issue itself, is that an issue that are many schools trying to do what they're doing here at Washburn?
Not that I know of. We're fortunate that Roger has taken the bull by the horns and said, we've got to do something. We have to address this shortage. If we don't address this shortage, we're going to have difficulty servicing the people in rural America. And if we don't have good legal representation and good accounting in rural America, those people are going to have to flock to the cities, so to speak, to hope to get it. But the problem is an awful lot of the professionals in the cities don't know a dang thing about farming and production agriculture. And when they don't know what's going on with production agriculture, the service they will render to those clients will be overpriced, and it won't deliver what they really need.
How do you look at your firm being able to, when you're ready to retire, to be able to get it off into good hands and to keep and to maintain the service that you provide?
Well, right now, I'm ready. I'm 68, and I'm ready to move on. Not by snapping my fingers, but I know that I need to find at least another attorney or two and some more paralegals to finish building out the system. I'm interviewing people all the time, trying to find the right fit. I need a culture fit, and I need people that understand agriculture, but I understand that I'm probably not going to find a farm kid that's going to come back and want to practice law. So because of that, When I have people, I take them to farms. I have them interact with my farm clients so they can learn what's a barrow, what's a gilt, what's a steer, what's a heifer, among many other things. Take them out and show them, get on the tractors and see the production agriculture and what's going on, which is absolutely astonishing because the tractors basically drive themselves and they end up driving across the field and they only turn them around at the end. Precision agriculture is absolutely amazing what we're doing. When we're talking about robotic cars driving themselves, John Deere and others have had that happening in tractors for years. We're the leaders in this in our technology. So for me to have my firm do well and prosper after I leave, I need to have more people who are dedicated to helping my clients achieve their goals.
If there's someone that's listening out there who is practicing to be an attorney, practicing law, or want to practice law to be able to do that, and they understand the shortage, what would be the best piece of advice that you could give them right now?
Best piece of advice I would give a person who's thinking about practicing law is get a good, solid education, learn about tax, learn about commercial transactions, learn about the business of running a law office. Whether you go to big law or you end up on your own, understanding how the business of law is done is of crucial importance to you. If you don't understand that, you can easily have problems with the Bar Association not keeping your trust account up. You can go broke easily if you don't learn how the business of running law. Yes, I love to practice law, but I also like to eat. I like to feed my family. And the first time I went out and worked on my own, I lost enough money in after-tax dollars to pay for my house. 8.5 years ago, I started over, and my wife reminded me, and she said, "And you're not doing that again, are you?" Thankfully not.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Comments of Joe Peiffer, who was one of the panelists during the forum and represented ag and business legal strategies based in Hiawatha, Iowa. You'll hear interviews during Tuesday's Ag Issues program from Friday's forum hosted by the Washburn University School of Law. This has been Ag Issues here on 580 WIBW.